Hi, I'm Annette Altmans, founder and CEO of the Men Project. I'm so grateful that you're here. In this webinar, we're going to explore what it means to detach with love and learn to care well for yourself while loving others. I'll be joined by special guest and friend Karla Downing. Karla is an award-winning best-selling author, speaker, and licensed marriage and family therapist whose passion is to help people set free from relational dysfunction, scriptural misunderstanding, and emotional pain. Detaching is not about a physical separation unless you want to. Detaching is about choosing to view things more accurately to your circumstances. It's about keeping a level of compassion without sacrificing yourself in the process. Maybe you've been trying to fix, to soothe, to adapt, stretching yourself thin in a relationship that's left you drained. If so, you're not alone and you're not the problem. So join us in this upcoming workshop. We're glad you're here. I'm Annette Altmans, founder and CEO of the Men Project, and it's such a pleasure to be with you here today for our webinar titled Detaching with Love, Caring for Yourself While Loving Others. Before I get into the webinar itself, I just want to do a little housekeeping. Beginning in 2026, we moved the Q&A to the Q&A that we normally did in our workshops. We're now calling them webinars, and we've moved that to our Restore coaching calls, where we will address all of your questions in a more intimate setting. We will have a coaching call following today's webinar. So if you'd like to join us immediately following this webinar, you can find the link in the chat to register. We'll start the coaching call about 15 minutes after this webinar ends. So please know that you can bring any questions. No question is off limits. It's possible that we might address a couple of your questions during our webinars, but we're not going to spend a lot of time doing that here. So that's why I really encourage you to join our Restore coaching calls to help you gain a deeper understanding of your particular situation. Regardless of Q&A, I do want to encourage you to continue to connect with each other in the chat because our chats have become a space where many have felt safe and comfortable sharing parts of their story and have found validation, a sense of not being alone. It's really been a special community. I also want to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be emailed to you. You can also find it on our website in our tools and resources page or on our YouTube channel. Okay, that's the housekeeping that I had for today. Today, I'm excited because I'm joined by friend and colleague Karla Downing. Karla is an award-winning best-selling author, speaker, and licensed marriage and family therapist. She has a passion, which I think you'll pick up on, to help people get free from relational dysfunction, scriptural misunderstanding, and emotional pain. But before I bring Karla in, let's have a look at what detaching with love is. It means you stop carrying someone else's emotional load while retaining a level of compassion for them. And when I think of the word compassion, uh, people have different interpretations of the word. So I just want to clarify for a minute. So, for example, some people think that compassion means to jump in with both feet and make the other person feel better. But that's a codependent response. What I mean by compassion is merely that it is not condemnation. You allow others to make choices, good or bad, but you don't jump in to fix or save them. Detaching with love also requires that you view your circumstances more accurately. For example, if your partner does not show you empathy, recognize the data. Stop bringing your vulnerabilities to a person who is not emotionally available or safe. You'll learn how to stay on your side of the fence and hold your boundaries in a civilized way. And we'll go a little deeper into this in a bit. But detaching with love is caring about others without controlling or fixing them. It involves stepping back from that longing to be soothed by the same person who's harming you. You shift your outlook to protect your autonomy and mental health. Okay, there might, an example of what detachment might be is you might say to yourself, that mood is theirs, it's not mine. Or I choose to not enter that chaotic conversation. Or I can love someone and still refuse to tolerate them. Because many women actually, because for a lot of reasons in our patriarchal culture, they've been accommodating, coping, adapting, pretzeling themselves out of shape to maintain the relationship or to avoid conflict. They're over functioning to the point of exhaustion. They're doing all the emotional lifting while their partner barely lifts a finger. Detaching is a way to focus on self preservation and emotional health, particularly if you intend to stay in a relationship. But I know that Karla has so much more to say about this topic. So Karla, I thank you for being here. First off, we're so glad to have you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Yes.
I would love to know how you define detachment.
Well, you did a pretty good job of giving an overview of detaching with love. So, I that was beautiful. I look at detachment as, like you said, the opposite of codependency. So it's recognizing that you are a separate person. In codependency, we do what's kind of enmeshment. We forget that we are separate. There's a joke that says when a codependent dies, the other person's life flashes before their eyes. Or a codependent gets up in the morning and looks and says, how are we going to feel today? So, in other words, it's that loss of that individuality. In an abusive or dysfunctional relationship, what happens is just like you said, we end up taking on the moods, the feelings, the opinions, the thoughts, the beliefs, even about ourselves from the other person. And we lose that idea of, wait a minute, I can step back. I almost describe it as like a third party, being able to recognize, like, you're watching what you're doing and that other person's doing. You're like, okay, this person is doing this and this person is doing this. And I don't have to see that as one entity or one person. I can separate it. What it did for me in my emotionally abusive marriage and in other dysfunctional relationships that I've been in my life is what I noticed, that I'm a reactor. And so a lot of what detachment does is it helps you to stop reacting, and allows you to choose how to act, which makes you in control of your emotions and feelings and actions, not the other person. So it allowed me to step back and say, okay, am I a part of this or not a part of this? While I was reacting, I would get done with an interaction with my husband and I would be confused. And I would be doing that. Is this my fault? Is this his fault? Did I do this? Well, I always felt like I had a part because I was reacting. I was yelling. I was responding. I was trying to convince him. I was trying to change him. And at some point I would feel like, oh, I pushed too hard, or I said too much, or maybe I shouldn't have done this. So what detachment did for me is it allowed me to separate myself, step back and say, what's going on here? How do I want to respond? And then I ended up being able to see, one, clearer what the dynamics were in my relationship and not take on so much blame.
Okay, that's great. Now, that when you say see the dynamics, I want to know um, how does detachment help you with actually the abuse cycle? You know, the tension building, and then there's the explosion, and then there's the honeymoon period again. How would you
Yes.
describe that detachment
So
fits into that?
detachment, part of detachment is looking at the reality of, what am I dealing with? Am I dealing with an abusive situation? Am I dealing with somebody who is just moody, or somebody that's passive aggressive, somebody that is mean and undermining me? What am I looking at? So you need to be a little bit, you need to be informed. You need to kind of dig in and say, what is going on here? And again, detachment allows you to do that because you're going to say, okay, what is this? And you're going to learn a little bit about it. I know people learn a lot from your um, from your organization in terms of what is abuse, what is covert abuse, what am I going to see, how do I feel, how do I recognize it? That's great. You're going to see that, and then your expectation is going to be for this person to do what this person does. I am dealing with an abuser. This abuser is going to have tension building. This abuser is going to have abusive episodes.
Or
This
like their
abuser,
regular, like could have a pattern of behaviors that they commonly
yes,
do. And so you
yes.
identify those.
Yes, yes. You identify them and then you expect them. It's like you're saying, when is this going to happen again? Not like in fear, but in like awareness and like having, and then you have a game plan. It's like you literally say, I am in an abusive relationship. This is what this person does. This is how I'm going to notice it. This is when I'm going to be aware of, okay, this is happening. And then that is going to have you help you to not get sucked into it and fall into the cycle of believing it again. Oh, I did something wrong to cause the abuse. What did I do? You know how that whole crazy making, what
Yeah.
did I do? I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. Should have been nicer. Should have been, more aware of what was of this person's needs,
Well, what
whatever
I
it
think
is.
is cool about that is that the survivor can actually, if she's if he or she is looking at that cycle and what their partner typically does, they can actually say, what do I do in that cycle? I'm going to do
Yeah.
something different
Hmm.
and prepare for ways that we're going to talk about detachment instead of their typical action of what they do when they get sucked in, or
Hmm.
pleading or crying or yelling or asking or whatever it is. They can identify their part in that and do something.
Yes.
I really like that.
Yeah, not in the sense that they're causing the abuse, but
No,
in the
definitely not.
sense that we're like in a dance in a relationship.
Yeah.
So this person, the abuser does these things, and then the survivor responds, and then the abuser does this, and the abuser's predicting what you're going to do too. Are you kidding? They absolutely know what you usually do. They take advantage of it. they
Yeah.
they literally can depend on you, like, oh, she's going to get really like focused on me, she's going to try to change me, and then I'm going to amp it up until she explodes, and then I'm just going to look at her and just be like, look at you, and then she's going to back off, and then I'm going to gloat, and then I'm going to like shut down to her and withdraw because I'm going to make her feel like the bad guy. I'm going to make her feel like it's all her fault, and then she's going to get, really kind of like she's going to try to placate me, she's going to try to do things to win me back. I mean, so we change the way that we respond. We cannot change the abuser, we can't change anyone
Right.
else.
No, for sure. I was not implying that.
Oh no, I know, I'm
Yeah,
making
but
the
I think
statement.
it's a good qualifier to let
Yes.
everybody know. Like,
Yeah, where we can totally change ourselves. And that's what's so
yeah,
awesome about detachment. I used to say to people, I don't see clients anymore, but I say to people in my classes, if you learn detachment, it will set you free. And how it sets you free is because you are no longer this hostage to somebody else's actions, somebody else's choices and emotions. You can literally become an actor in your own life and in your own relationships.
okay, well, that brings up, you know, boundaries. Typically, well, I want to be careful because I don't want to imply that
Yes.
that if a lack of boundaries causes abuse. Abuse is a choice. It's
Mm-mm,
not an accident, and it's never the victim's fault.
mm-mm.
But boundaries can play a role in detachment. And you might not be ready for boundaries yet. You might have to practice, you might have to work through um, your fears about what will happen, what they will do if you hold consequences to there's a lot of complexities. So I would love for you to say how you see boundaries and detachment relating together.
Well, part of detachment is also about recognizing what you're responsible for and what the other person is responsible for. So you're saying, okay, this is like you said earlier, this is how I usually react, and this is how this person usually reacts. So part of boundaries is recognizing I'm responsible for this, and this person is responsible for this. So no longer do you take the blame or the responsibility for, like you said, the abuser's moods, the abuser's anger, the abuser's abuse cycle, whatever that is. That's not yours. that is the abuser's responsibility. So part of boundaries, when I teach boundaries, I teach about responsibility. I say two words you're going to hear all the time: responsibility and boundaries. Boundaries are about what I'm responsible for, I'm going to take care of. What the other person is responsible for, they're going to take care of. What am I responsible for? I'm responsible for doing the best I can to protect myself, to preserve my sanity, to make choices about what I will tolerate and not tolerate, about what I will do and what I will not do. Boundaries are about saying, am I willing to do this or am I not willing to do this? And then being able to make set lines or in like make my own actions go
Yeah,
along
like
with
a
what my boundaries
consequence
are.
that you've already
Yes,
predetermined that you're going
yes,
to follow through with.
yeah. Like I'm not going to continue in this conversation when you're yelling at me or calling me names. I can just make the point recognizing I didn't cause this person to get angry. I didn't cause this person to yell at me. So I get to choose. Am I going to continue this conversation or am I going to not continue in this conversation? So a boundary can be not worrying about what a detachment is, not worrying about what that other person is thinking of me or how they feel about me or that they're going to be mad at me. Now, of
Or
course,
what they'll
maybe
do if you walk away.
or, yeah, or what they'll, unless your safety is
Right, of
involved.
course.
Physical safety is a different situation. But I'm not going to worry about, like for me, my husband would get mad at me for things, all kinds of things. And I was literally ruled by his anger in the sense that I couldn't tolerate it. I felt when he was angry at me for something that I needed to talk him out of it. I needed to change his mind. I needed to explain why I didn't do that. When I learned detachment, I said, if he wants to get angry at me, that's his business. I'm not going to change my actions or my behavior because he chooses to get angry.
Yeah,
If he
I'm not
wants to
going to
deal
take
with
it
it,
on and let it affect me.
no, I'm not going to let it change me. Before, when I look back on my life and when I raised my daughters in the abusive environment, I literally said, I let him rock my world. If he decided to get in a mood and get angry, that changed the whole evening. That would affect dinner. That would affect me instead of me having a peaceful home where I sat down with my girls and I, ate dinner with them. Or, if I did it now, I would go in their bedroom and eat dinner if he wanted to be in a mood. I would take dinner across the street to a park and literally eat dinner with them. I wouldn't put us all into that environment where somebody was upset and angry. I wouldn't try to talk him out of it to where the whole evening involved an argument between me and him, me doing most of the yelling and arguing because I was trying to convince him and he would shut down and not say anything. And just because I was trying to talk him out of it. So, yes. So
Okay, well,
that
you're
was a
bringing
very
up,
long answer.
that's okay. You're bringing up, so how do you detach from your own intense emotions? I understand
Right.
people who react. It's that fight, flight, freeze, appease
Hmm.
trauma response
Yeah.
when you are feeling oppressed or denied or abandoned or, emotionally abandoned or you want to be understood, you want validation. So it triggers, there's a lot of trigger points for people. How do you detach from those intense emotions?
Well, okay, so you're not working just on detachment, right? You're also doing other things. You're learning to take care of yourself. You're learning all the healthy things you need to do. There's 10 principles that I teach in my classes for people in difficult relationships. And part of that is taking care of yourself. It is being aware of your trigger points. Like for me, abandonment was huge. So I had to work through my abandonment. I had to understand what that was. I had to recognize this is not my childhood. This is not the same thing. I am an adult now. I don't have to fear being abandoned. I don't have to fight to be okay. I'm okay. I can take care of myself. So it was a lot of work outside of that, but it's recognizing ultimately like the emotion comes up. If it comes up, be fight or flight, you got to take yourself out of that situation. If you're going to be like I learned later to say, I'm not having this conversation and walk out the door. Like go take a walk or like just whatever that is that you have to do to not react. Because again, you're doing all of the stuff together, but you're reminding yourself reacting is going to hurt me. So just by the nature of detaching, and we'll talk about later how you learn to do that, just by nature of doing that, you are reminding yourself, I am not going to give into this. But you've also got to do other things that calm that reactivity. But as soon as you start to feel that know that you have the ability to detach, it's empowering.
Yeah, okay. Well, speaking of empowerment, how would you detach from somebody who is like blaming you or falsely accusing you, for example?
Okay, so there's a couple of answers to that. One, uh, first of all, you cannot convince the other person that you are not at fault. That is not your goal. Detachment, like I said, I tried to convince my husband, you don't have any reason to be angry with me. I didn't do anything wrong. That's craziness. You don't argue with somebody who's irrational. There's a saying that's it's don't jade. Don't justify, argue, defend, or explain. We don't do that with people who are doing things to us that are not like with goodwill and mutual cooperation and all of that. We're going to not engage and not try to convince. So I'm not going to convince them that I'm not at fault, but I got to check myself. Am I at fault here? Did I do something wrong or am I being blamed? If I'm being blamed, it's like having a wall between you. I'm not taking that on. I look at blame and I think of it as something that splatters on me. And it's like, am I going to let that splatter on me? So I have to own it.
Yeah,
And I
it's
keep,
hard to have a reasonable conversation
yeah,
when someone takes a stance of blaming instead of just, you
yeah,
know, discussing rationally and respectfully
yeah,
different
exactly.
viewpoint. Blame
And
just sabotages it.
oh, totally. And I tell people just expect the blame until the person is willing to take responsibility for their own stuff and be honest to themselves and others. Like, and until they're ready to do that, they got to blame somebody. When you have something going on inside of you, I know we think that, abusers are just, they're okay. No, they got all kinds of psychological stuff going on, defenses and everything. And until they are honest and can say, I'm abusive, I do these things, they've got to put this like discomfort and this angst on someone else and and responsibility for their actions. They're going to blame something, someone, God. There's a scripture, Proverbs 19:3, and it says, the fool, basically says to God, it's your fault, you're doing it. It's going to blame God for what he's doing. And I say, and others. Of course he is. You know, they're going to keep doing it. So you don't take it on. Once in a while, if it's safe, there are times when I would say, with an accusation that was not true, sometimes I would just walk away, or sometimes I would say in a very strong, like voice, that is not true. Just like that is a statement, and then I would disengage from the conversation. Now, before I learned how to detach and I was healthier and I got healed from my and worked through my codependency, I would try to argue why I wasn't to blame. That's insanity. You don't do that with somebody you're not dealing with somebody who's fighting fair. You
Right.
can't win.
Got it. Okay, so what about somebody that like rages at you and they're really angry and they follow you around the house yelling at you? What do you do?
Well, first of all, you got to make sure that you're safe. Okay, so how far does that typically go? We always have to be willing to call the police if needed, and that can even be for intimidation. We can say, please don't follow me. Please give me some space. I'll talk to you about this when things are calmer. So those are requests, those are not boundaries. We can make a statement beforehand that if you follow me around, I am going to leave the house or I am going to go spend the night in a motel or at a friend's house until I feel that you've calmed down and I can feel comfortable and safe. Now, again, this depends on who you're dealing with. You got to know who you're dealing with. So all of these things are, like take what you like and leave the rest, what works for you.
But some
But
some people just they
shut
vomit,
down.
they just bleed all over you and vomit all over you.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's even if you don't say anything, they still are yelling at you. So you're recommending leave to
If
set
you can, if it's safe.
Of
Say I'm going
course.
to go to
We
a separate
mostly are
room.
dealing with people that are experiencing emotional abuse and not physical violence. If you're dealing with physical violence, of course, you don't want to
Yeah,
do anything that's going to antagonize the person and compromise your safety.
yeah.
So let's just say that qualifier for the rest of this webinar. We're talking more about emotional abuse. So somebody just keeps yelling, you're recommending
Well,
you
first of all, if
call the
you,
police.
well, there's that you also, you can, no, you don't want to yell. If you yell at somebody that's yelling, you raise your voice at somebody that's yelling,
Right,
it's going to escalate, okay?
right.
Because that's going to be building, the all of the, fight or flight kind of thing. So you can speak in a lower, softer voice and say, please don't yell at me. Please don't yell at me. Please don't yell at me. If you keep yelling at me, I'm going to have to leave. And then if they follow you, you say, please don't follow me. I'm going to have to leave if you keep doing this. And then you can like go into a separate room. You can go outside. You can go take a walk. You have to you have it figured out beforehand. But again, you want to tell this person beforehand. So you can make this plan. I'm telling you now that if you yell at me and you follow me when you're yelling at me and I ask you to stop and you don't stop, that I am going to leave the house for at least a couple hours or am going to go spend the night somewhere where I feel safe. It's like you tell them ahead of time. You've got to change the dynamic that you usually engage in. And if they're used to being able, I mean, I've had people tell me that they have been yelled at for 4 hours. I'm like, no
Yeah,
one ever, under any circumstances, should ever even talk to you for 4 hours without you saying anything. Like at the most, they get the floor for 15 minutes occasionally. That's it. Like if
yeah,
you can't speak up and have a conversation after that, like you need to make a plan and not tolerate that. And you definitely got to recognize there's nothing you're going to do in that state of mind where that person's yelling at you, where they're in their lower brain in fight, then you are not going to be able to stand there long enough to where you can get your 2 cents in. They're not in a position or a place where they can listen to you.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So detaching, I can just imagine that some people are going to say, "Oh, I'd feel so guilty if I did this or that, or if I um, didn't bring my vulnerabilities, if I started pulling away emotionally." Um, how do you detach yourself from feeling guilty?
Well, okay, so there's false guilt. There's something called false guilt. And false guilt is when you feel like you're doing something wrong when you are not. So you need to work through that. What you feel guilty for, what the abuser can put on you, and the guilt that you take on.
Now, that misplaced guilt that is imposed upon you.
Yes, that the what the abuser says, like my husband used to tell me that I was mean. He was mean. I was not mean. Or that I was like hard. And I'm like, I'm the one begging for reconciliation and for healing and for conversation and to go to therapy. You're the one refusing it and you're the one doing all this stuff. I don't think so. But for a while that worked on me because I would argue and I was a strong person. My name's Karla. It means strong woman. So I was born strong. I'm firstborn. I'm from a dysfunctional family. I'm choleric personality. Yeah, I'm strong. So I had to work through that guilt and think, okay, is it wrong for me to speak up? Is it wrong for me to have strength in me as a person? No. Is it wrong for me to yell and scream? Yeah, I don't feel good about that. I understand why I'm doing that out of the reactive abuse, but I don't feel good about that. But you got to have that understanding. What am I really doing that I think is wrong? And what am I, and that goes into beliefs. Is it really selfish for me to go to the gym on a Wednesday night when he's been working all day? Do I have to stay home? You got to work through all that. Then the guilt that he puts on you, you're going to be able to go false guilt, false guilt, false guilt, not true. And then the guilt that you put on yourself, you want to go, oh no, that's that old belief. That's not true. And then eventually the false guilt goes away. But it's also part of working through the codependency. Codependents take on guilt for everything because they feel responsible for everything. When you work through that and you recognize I am not responsible for other people's feelings, I am not responsible for other people's choices, then that guilt lessens.
Yeah. Okay. So you talk about um, not allowing yourself to get hooked.
Yes.
I I want to make sure that our viewers understand the self-talk, the internal conversation you have with yourself. Because I talk to so many survivors who say, I just can't stop myself from reacting. I can't stop myself from wanting to get all the words in because I think they don't understand. And if I say it this way or that way, I can't control it. I know like the next day that I shouldn't have done that, but in the moment I can't control it. So how do you actually stop yourself from getting hooked in those things?
Well, again, this is not like an overnight thing. You're not going to instantly be able to say, okay, I'm going to unhook from everything. But as you understand part of this is an intellectual understanding first of I'm getting hooked. This is working against me. This is being used against me. This is what I'm dealing with. When you understand very clearly what is going on, it becomes easier to like I said, detachment is like being it's kind of like watching. You're like this observer and you're going like, "Oh, there, that's that hook again of self-pity. He's pretending that he's hurt by me and he's a victim. Oh, that's that hook. Oh, I see that hook. Do I want to take that hook? No, I'm not going to take that hook. Uh,
Right. So basically, you're saying, I can't fix someone else's mood or their choices or
no,
help them heal or feel better
no.
or make them want to change because I'm not responsible for their mood, but I can change how I respond.
Exactly. And it's literally getting the picture. Like it's like I can't stress enough. Like for instance, my husband, I would go to my support group on a Wednesday night. My husband and I did a business together. We worked in the business. And every Wednesday night on my way out the door, he would go, "Oh, we got to talk to you about something with work." And then I would placate and think, oh, I don't want him to get mad at me. Work has to come first. And I would come back in and I would sit down and I would go through the work thing. Well, he didn't want to really talk about work. He didn't want me to go. So after a while, I realized, okay, this is going to happen on Wednesday night. So here's the boundary. I'm going to my Wednesday night support group no matter what. So I was prepared. I recognized that, and see, at the beginning, I might maybe argue with him. I don't really want to talk to you about work stuff right now. This is my Wednesday night group. See, that's the emotion. I've got to go to this group. This is important to me. It's not fair for you to bring this up. You had all day. I'm trying to convince him. No, I got to convince me that it's okay to go to my support group. And I got to feel comfortable with that. So beforehand, I recognize, hey, I need to go. He's doing this. When he brings this up, see, here's the game plan. When he brings this up, I'm just going to say, oh, I'm sorry. I'd love to talk to you about that when I get home or tomorrow morning. But right now I need to go to my group. And then bye-bye. And you walk out the door. But it's not about convincing him that I get to go. So this is where the separation comes in. I am a separate person. I get to do what is good for me. I get to do what is right for me. Even if I'm married to him, or if that's my child or my parent, do have a choice in what I do with my life and my time and how I take care of myself. I am allowed to go. I am going to go. But when you know the game plan, it's kind of like following a script, and it is recognizing like, okay, this is going to happen. Let's play the movie forward.
Yeah, being that third person looking
Yep,
in and trying
looking
to
in. Yes,
not
and you
not get
recognize it.
involved, but
Yeah.
just play a different role.
Everybody listening to this, everyone could sit down right now and tell us exactly what happens in their abusive relationship, how they get triggered, how they get pulled into it, how they end up reacting, what the person says, what they does. Write it down, recognize it, and then journal it out, and then say, okay, what do I usually do? What can I do differently? Okay, what's my detachment plan? Oh, I get that. I don't have to react like that. When you go, oh, there they go. It's like, oh, an angry person is going to get angry. A victim is going to be a victim. Then you just go, oh, there you go again. There you go again. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, blah 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 blah. There you go again, and it becomes like not this, you're detaching emotionally because you're recognizing what the person is doing and why they're doing it. And then you're just, instead of being like a part of it, you are separated from it. In
You're,
the
you're
Al-Anon, they have
separating
three
your,
C's. I don't
your
cause it, I can't control it, and I can't cure it. And I add on a 4C, but I can choose how to respond to it. And that's what detachment is. I'm going to choose how to respond to all this stuff. And I'm going to make it out like it's a game plan. I'm going
yeah.
to know ahead of time.
Okay. All of
Annette,
this.
Annette and Carla, can I
Yeah,
interrupt for 1 second because we
sure.
have several people raising the same concern. There's two concerns that are being raised, and I think it's really important while you're on it to talk about this. And Carla, you said something amazing that just was a great segue. So I wanted to just
Okay.
highlight on that you said it's about detaching emotionally, and I want to really make sure that that's being grasped here.
Hmm.
The first concern that's been said several times in several different ways is that the need to be careful because there can be consequences and backlash for detaching and putting boundaries up, and that it could become really unsafe. And several people are saying that in different ways. Can you please address um, one thing that's coming to mind and just food for thought was I want to make sure that the message is being communicated that we don't want to cower out of fear. We need to listen to our gut, but we also like we have to listen for our safety, but we also need to walk in strength and know,
Yeah.
if we set a boundary and they have a response that's less than ideal, well then we also have another choice we can make. We're not just stuck in their response to our boundaries. So I want to see if you can kind of speak to that a little bit and help everyone here. They're a little concerned about that.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So, exactly. You want to predict, again, what is the person's response going to be. Now, you get to choose your response knowing what the person's response is likely going to be. So there may be things you're not willing to do at this point because you're not strong enough or your situation restricts you and restricts your choices. So always, this isn't just about I'm going to go in there and I'm going to detach and I'm going to do this. You got to think about your situation and the reality of being in any abusive relationship or any dysfunctional relationship is that there are realities that we deal with. So always take the reality and the likely backlash into consideration. Do you want to face that backlash? There is nothing wrong with saying to yourself, I can't handle that tonight. I can't handle the backlash. This week I need all this stuff to get this stuff done. I have this going on with my child. I don't want to bring the tension into the home. I don't want to get my husband or wife mad at me to where they won't attend the child's program at school or sports game. I'm not willing to do that to my kid. You are the one that is in control of this. You are going to take every single fact into reality, into consideration as you make your decision of what to do. And that's what understanding the dynamics allows you to do. And then you get to make choices. You get to say, is it worth it? Or is it not worth it? Or am I just going to do this? Or can I just placate this conversation a little and say, you know what, I understand you're really mad about that. I will think about that. I will get back to you. Like I am, okay, I hear you. Do I want to placate tonight because I need to in order to get through my work schedule this week? Whatever that is.
Yeah, it's you don't have to communicate all of your thoughts, your game plan or your thinking
Oh
strategy.
gosh, no.
No, you don't communicate
Mm-mm.
that with the other person. These are things that you're processing yourself.
Yeah.
What we're saying is instead of bringing your vulnerabilities
Yes.
to somebody who is not available and who is not empathic, start distancing, detaching yourself. It doesn't mean you have to set a boundary.
Mm-mm.
You can do baby steps before boundaries. You have to face your fears of what potentially could happen and
Yes.
take those into consideration. So you could just simply say, I don't like it when you yell at me, and just make a statement. If you're not ready to say, if you yell at me, I'm leaving the house. You
Yeah.
might have to start with those baby steps. I don't like it when you yell at me, and turn around and walk away. Or
Mhm.
maybe you just need to keep saying it. There's so many degrees depending on your strength, your um, willingness to, like, are you at the place where you're willing to say, I will not tolerate this anymore? If you're not at that place where
Oh,
you're ready to lower the boom and have a large consequence, don't say something you're not going to follow through with. Don't set boundaries you're not ready, that you don't have the courage to follow through with. Don't set yourself up for failure. You can take baby steps and start practicing in small ways as you emotionally detach. I want to talk about how, you know, there's challenges with detaching.
mhm.
You have intense emotions. So you're going to be overthinking. You're trying to separate from those codependent tendencies, or those overly empathic tendencies to care for the other person. You are um, going to feel relief on one side, but you're going to feel sadness on the other side. You are going to probably feel more grounded after emotionally detaching. But at first, when you're practicing it, you're going to feel insecure because it's not normal for you. It's like a detox process. It doesn't just happen overnight. You're you might feel, once you realize that this is really a game that is being played, that you can't emotionally experience a healthy connection with this person. Getting that realization is sometimes going to bring out feelings of loss, grief,
Mhm.
guilt, anger, fear of what does this mean long term? When you give up that, I like to say hopium, those that magical thinking that they're going to come around and be an empathic. These are a lot of emotions that you need to work through, and so many more. And it, I think it's really helpful to join a support group or to find a good therapist who can help you. Like Karla mentioned, she had feelings, fear of abandonment. I had the same experience. I realized that was the core reason why I was unable to follow through with the boundary. And
Yeah.
until I worked through that, um, I was not able to think clearly. And so I want to take this time to recommend a book that I've talked about before. It's by Dr. Russ. He's not a doctor, I don't think, but he's a marriage and family therapist. Ross Rosenberg called it human magnet syndrome, and it really addresses codependency in a different way. He calls it self-love deficit disorder, and I think it's a more appropriate term, but because it really talks about the internal work you need to do on yourself to love yourself more, to care better for yourself, to be able to detach, and to be able to implement safe boundaries. We don't ever want you to do something that's not safe. But Jill, do you feel that we have addressed the comments that you're seeing, or is there something else?
It's amazing. So I want to just like, I needed to tap the brakes for a sec because I think, like Karla and Annette, you're so like understanding of this concept in full. And I think maybe this is a brand new concept for a lot
Yeah.
of people. And so it feels a tad overwhelming and it's kind of fast paced, which is amazing and great. It's so much good information because you two are just phenomenal. And I love your answers to that. It just kind of pressed the brakes a little. Someone responded that they felt lighter hearing your responses. So thank you. The only other concern that came up that I do think is really important to address, it was said by several people, is calling the police and how several people had mentioned that they have, in one way or another, it has not been helpful.
Mhm.
Someone brought up the Gabby Petito case and how that worked in her instance. Somebody else was talking about how the boss had called the police on the husband. And so I just want to see if you can maybe offer options for people who know or feel that that might not be best for them. How do they detach
Yeah.
love and their if it's escalated?
Okay. I just want to comment, and Carla, you might have a totally different viewpoint than I do, and I feel free to contradict me. But for me, um, if you call the police and you are going to be emotionally unstable and traumatized, um, and taking so empathic people tend to they they a good part of themselves is they're willing to self-reflect. They're willing
Yeah.
to say, what's my part in this? And then they confess it to the police. So I think that's what we saw in Gabby Petito's case. The police officers should have been trained and recognized that. But the boyfriend wasn't admitting to anything, and she was saying, well, I can be really, anal when he brings dirt into the motorhome or what. That was one of the issues, and so many other issues that she took responsibility for. I would say that you need to be really strong. I recommend doing things like have a recording of them raging and play that back. Um, you need to know the laws in your state about recording, but even if you don't call the police in that moment, you go to the police afterwards by yourself and play the recording and say, how would you handle this situation? I am constantly being raged at, and they corner me in the room for an hour and a half yelling at me. It's traumatizing. The only way I think that I can get this person to leave is if the police come and intervene. What would be your normal protocol? Educate yourself on what your local law enforcement officers would do. But I do think that when somebody is erratically driving in the car, yelling at you, or intimidating the kids by raging, that it's something for you to seriously consider because if you can get it documented that they have been identified as being abusive, that law enforcement will actually document that. It's you're you're like the first person, you're being the one to claim abuse first, and it's verified. Where I've seen so many cases where the actual abuser catches you in a reactive moment and blames
Yeah.
the survivor for being the perpetrator. And because they're willing to say and do anything to avoid responsibility or accountability, they are
They're willing to
not willing
lie.
to self-reflect.
They'll
So,
lie.
pardon me?
They'll lie.
They'll
They'll
lie. They
lie.
will absolutely lie. And so you need to be smart about it. And so I wouldn't just make a blanket statement that all law enforcement is not going to do the right thing. I would do my research. I would talk to an attorney. I would go to a domestic violence agency in your area that's familiar with law enforcement in your area. There are things you can do to prepare for the next time that it happens. Be smart. Be smart about it. Don't be afraid. Yes, you need to be cautious because it would be horrible if it was flipped around on you. But if you are calm and you are clear and you have evidence, that puts you in a much better position than how um, bless Gabby, because oh gosh, it just tore me apart watching that video. But she was she almost acted like she was guilty and she was very fragile, and which is understandable, but I don't think she was aware that she was in an abusive situation. So the smarter you get, the more confidence you'll get, and you'll be able to advocate for yourself more clearly and effectively. Karla, what do you have to say about that?
I agree with all of that. Again, being informed, anytime you're dealing with anything that is this major and consequential in your life, you get informed. Talk to an attorney, talk to find out what your rights are, talk to the police, find out how they'll handle it. Definitely go to a domestic violence agency. And if there's none around, you've got all kinds of things online like a net and, just where you can get more information. But yes, and the other thing you can do that's a step before the police is have a male in your family or friends possibly step in the middle of that, come over. Now that could be dangerous for them. You got to again figure this out. But having somebody else come over into the situation with some abusers can calm them down and allow you to, step away. Some of those that would amp that up. So you'd have to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, we have 10 minutes left, so I want to see if we have any questions.
Can I just talk about one concept before
Yes,
we do that? Okay,
absolutely.
because this is the most important thing I need to say after we've gone through all this. Detaching is not about denying your emotions. It's not about pretending things aren't what they are. It's the opposite. It's coming to terms with them and recognizing it. It is you and we Annette talked about the all of the intense feelings. Detaching is the one thing where one time you're going to act. You are going to act as if you are detached before you are detached. So you right now, I would say absolutely sit down after this, write down think of one situation that comes up frequently in your relationship and say, if I were perfectly detached emotionally, physically, and mentally, what would I be doing, thinking, and feeling? What would I be doing, thinking, and feeling? Now, picture it like a movie. Now, the next time that happens, you act as if that is what's going on. It's not really what's going to be going on. Your actions are going to fit that.
So in
Your
other words, you're
feelings,
saying they might not truly believe those feelings, but they're going to act as if, and the
yes,
feelings will follow,
yes,
the
yes.
confidence will follow.
Yes, you're going to act as if. You're going to act as if you are detached. You're going to act as if I'm going to say to my husband, I'm sorry you feel that way. Inside, my feelings are going to go, it's not fair. You can't say this. This isn't true. And I'm going to be wanting to tell him, this isn't true. This is why. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. But I'm going to go, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or, okay, I understand you're angry. And then I'm going to walk away. Inside, I'm going to be going, no, I want to explain it. I want to convince him. But I'm going to do the actions. I'm going to walk out the door on the Wednesday night because that's my support group time. I'm going to say, bye, have a good night. I can't talk about that right now. And then outside, I'm going to go, oh my gosh, is he going to be mad when I get home? Is there going to be consequences tomorrow? What's going to happen? I'm still going to walk out the door. I'm still going to walk away from the conversation because I am acting as if I am detached. After you do that long enough, it literally the feelings go with you. I'm going to go and I'm going to be okay. I'm not going to think about what he's thinking while I'm at my support group. I'm going to think about my support group, what's being said, and how happy I am to be there. And I'm telling you, it happens. And that's where that ultimate freedom is that you can actually do it and the feelings go along with the actions.
Yeah, that's good advice. Okay, there's so much more that we could talk about on this subject. Oh my goodness, maybe we have to do a part two, but
Sure.
um, Jill, do we have any questions?
Yeah, and I just want to affirm everything that you said. I think it really beautifully addressed the concerns that were happening in the chat. And Annette, you had mentioned about getting to the place of being really calm when you're needing to step out for more help than inside your home. And I think that's kind of what this is all about. It's about managing, listening to our emotions, managing our emotions, and detaching, keeping our emotions, but detaching in a way that helps us not react, Karla, as you said at the beginning. So I really want to drive that home because I think it was coming. It was coming like fire hose. We were like, wow, this is amazing information. And people were like, this and this and this. So people are saying, yes, please do a part two. We've gotten several people saying that. So I just want to
Okay.
affirm everything that was said today. There is a question here that I do want to ask. The chat is jumping. How to deal with chronic stonewalling and the silent treatment.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I that's what I dealt with.
Yeah.
You know, Karla, do you want to go first and I'll go second?
Yeah, again, the silent treatment. Now, this is a situation where you go, okay, I'm going to get the silent treatment. Pretty predictable when you're going to get the silent treatment, and you're going to figure out how do I want to respond to the silent treatment? And you have choices of how you want to respond. You can choose you can choose to act as if everything's normal, like the silent treatment isn't bothering you. That's a possibility. Like
Yeah.
you just talk and you say, hey, how was your day? And the person doesn't answer, and you go, mine was fine. And then you just go make dinner like you normally do, and you take care of the kids, and you turn on music, and you dance around the house, and you act like you're fine. That's one way to handle a silent treatment. A second way is with a boundary. I'm not going to be here if you're going to continue the silent treatment, or I'm going to move out of the bedroom while you're giving me the silent treatment. Those are possibilities. The possibility of setting boundaries like, by Thursday, I need to make a decision on whether or not we're going to, go on this vacation. And if you aren't able to talk to me before that, again, these are boundaries, uh, then I'm going to make a decision about that without you and then follow through. So you can allow the consequences of the silent treatment to fall on them. Or you can, you have any number of possibilities, but the detachment allows you to act as if you want to act during the silent treatment. And then ultimately, do you want to stay in a relationship where you're getting a silent treatment? Because silent treatments are
It's
abusive.
retaliation. It's abuse. It is.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'd like to uh, say that I understand how painful the silent treatment
Hmm.
can be. It's like you have to hold up this wall to protect your heart while they are completely ignoring you or having a punitive attitude towards you. And it's hard to manage when you are so emotionally invested. And this is where actually by detaching, it's going to be easier for you to step back and not long for that connection with someone who is not going to show up well for you. It puts it in a more accurate light. I also want to say that in terms of stonewalling, stonewalling is them being defensive, and they're going to use any covert behavior they can think of to deflect, to blame you, to avoid accountability and responsibility, to hijack the conversation so that you can't focus on, your reasonable needs, concerns, or hurts. They are going to do anything to block you from communicating your emotional needs. And so just recognize it for being defensive. They actually, when you raise a reasonable complaint, concern, or a hurt, they are so emotionally immature, so underdeveloped emotionally, they actually feel attacked. They're so uncomfortable with your emotions and their own emotions that they just want to shut it down. And so they use all these stonewalling ploys. And it doesn't, just because I'm saying they're emotionally immature, that's not an excuse. Uh, it's their responsibility to be mature emotionally. And
Right.
decided to never grow up. And that's not your problem. But don't take it personally because it's all about them. And your job is to recognize it for what it is and not get sucked into that crazy making circular conversation that leads to no solutions, that leads to no resolution, because this is where we have our tool called the maze of confusion. If you picture a maze as a metaphor for a conversation, you just have one roadblock after another that you can't find your way out. The only way through to enter and through a conversation where there may be a conflict is with healthy communication skills. And that's not what these guys are doing, or gals. Women are just as capable of doing the same thing. So I just say emotionally, don't take it on, don't engage, don't take the bait. Just you, I mean, I started getting, you might not do this, but I started saying, oh, here goes that crazy making conversation again. Okay, I'm out. I
Yeah.
started getting a little sarcastic. I'm out. And I literally just would go, I'm just not going to do it, and walk away and enjoy my night doing something else. I don't know the intensity of your person, but if I know that you can look at the intensity of yourself, your vulnerability, your level of emotion, emotional investment. Those are things that you can control.
Yeah.
Do you have anything more to say about that, Karla?
Everything you just said is all about detachment. When you say don't take stonewalling personally, that's another part of detachment. Don't take anything they do personally. It's not because you're not a loving partner. It's not because you're not a good person. It's not because you did something wrong. It's because they have a faulty belief system. They have an abuser mindset and an abuser's belief system. It's not about you. So you say, oh my gosh, he's treating me bad. It hurts. My response was to always get mad. But when I let the anger fall and I felt the hurt, oh my gosh, it was overwhelming. How can
Yeah.
someone who's supposed to love me, that I love, that I gave my life to, do these things to me? Because they're sick. They're not normal. That's how. So it's not because I'm a failure as a partner, as a woman. It's because this person has a problem.
They have an entirely different worldview about how
Exactly.
relationships should function than
Exactly.
you do. You
Yep.
are self-reflective. You're willing to take responsibility. You are empathic. They are self-centered. They don't
Mhm.
self-reflect. They have an outer critic. They will never admit fault. They
Nope.
think they dominate your position. They have all kinds of faulty beliefs and thinking patterns that drive their their behaviors. You aren't even playing from the same playbook.
No, no, no. So don't take it personally. Just
Yeah.
remember that. Don't take it personally. I don't care who this person is to you. Don't take it personally. It's not about you.
Okay, well, Karla, this was a great conversation that I think we need to continue. Thank you
Okay.
so much for being here, everyone. Thank you for being
Can
here.
and can I just quickly say there's a lot not to compete with Annette. My stuff is a little bit different than yours in terms of how I do things, but I
Oh,
have
absolutely. Tell
lots.
them how to reach you.
Yes, I am changemyrelationship.com is my website. I have tons of YouTube videos on YouTube under Change My Relationship. I have course classes that I teach on Zoom and in person in Orange County, California. And
So
they're
changemyrelationship.com.
.com. Yeah, everything is there, including a free subscription that you can sign up to get all of my information about what's going on, and you get weekly devotionals, YouTube videos, things like that. So it's all there. I also have books. So there's lots of material available if you look at changemyrelationship.com. So
All
thank you
right.
for
Well,
having me
thank
on
you for
here. I'm
that. Oh,
going to
you're
look
so
forward
welcome.
to part two.
Okay.
Okay.
Very
Bye,
good. Thanks
everyone.
so much, Carla.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everyone, and take good care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.